Welcome to the Everything Networking Talk Show, sharing real-world networking experiences, the do's and the don'ts, in order to help you grow. With your hosts, Eric Stanley and Mitchell Fromm.
Good afternoon. This is Eric Stanley, and sorry for the delay there. We had a 5-minute delay for technical issues. This is the Everything Networking Talk Show, and we're glad to have our guest who's been waiting on the line for a while now to join us on the show. And I believe, hold on, I think we have another person. Let me make sure to test this. Is this Henry?
Yes, this is Henry.
Hey, Henry, good to have you on the show. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Skype for some reason just wouldn't dial the number. I couldn't get on, so I've been struggling with Skype for about 10 minutes now. But we're glad to have you on the show. I'm going to have Mitchell on in a second. I just had him trying to call the host line to get the show started, and so now he's dialing back in, I'm sure. But we'll get him on in a second. But just so you know, everybody, this is Everything Networking, and we are at facebook.com/everything networking. You can go there and you can follow us, and you can find all the links to the show that we post after the show, and links to our guest information and the things that we talk about on the show at facebook.com/everything networking. We're going to follow the same format that we normally do, which is we talk about getting to know, like, and trust somebody, the guest that we have on the show. And so the idea is to get to know and like our guest Henry, and I'll introduce him in a second here. So you can't trust somebody and give them referrals until you've gotten to like them, and you can't get to like them until you know them, right? So we need to kind of follow a pattern in the show where we find out, the personal information about Henry that he feels comfortable sharing, where he went to school, where he grew up, where he was born, the things that connect us. What's going to connect me to Henry? Did he serve in the military, or did he have an uncle who did? The personal stories that are going to connect us or help us get to know Henry. And then once we've gotten to know Henry, then it's a matter of, personal taste, I guess, about the like side, because there's plenty of people that are very successful professionals that I may or may not like. And that's not an issue of them being bad people or anything like that. We just have we either connect or we don't connect. It may be, our religious beliefs. It may be our political beliefs. It may be any number of different things that make us not like each other. But you can't get to know that until you've gotten to know that person. And then once you've gotten to know that person, then it's a matter of getting to like them. Once you've gotten to that like stage, then you're going to trust that person to share referrals with, right? I mean, we don't get referrals from everybody. I don't get referrals from people in my industry, who look at us as the big dog on the block, and why should I help that guy, kind of a thing. It's a matter of like. We haven't gotten to get to know each other and like each other. I don't get referrals from private equity people as much as I would like to, because they haven't had the chance to get to know me and like me and trust me in order to give me those referrals. But so we want to spend this time on Everything Networking, getting to know our guest. And then we're going to, spend the first part of the show on that, and then at halftime we're going to take a commercial break. And then once we're done with that commercial break, we'll come back and we'll talk about the right way to network. Servant leadership is what we talk about. Give first networking is another way to call it. Pay it forward networking is another way to call it. Once you get to know and like and trust that person, how do you network with that person? How do you network with other people that you know? And we'll get to talk a little bit about servant leadership, and talk to Henry about his introduction to servant leadership, how he found out about servant leadership, and then we'll get into the do's, the don'ts, the tips, and the tricks that we have that we bring to the show. But anyway, Henry, why don't you start us off by just introducing yourself, and tell us what you do later on. We're going to cover what you do, as far as business at the end of the show. So everybody stay tuned to hear what Henry does for a living. But why don't you tell us, Henry, what you can about us? Where did you grow up? Where were you born? If you feel comfortable sharing that, where did you go to school? The things that would connect us with you.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm a Southern boy, and I went to, after a quick jaunt up to Ohio for a number of years in my early childhood, we ended up staying in Dallas. And I stayed in Dallas for basically all of my growing up years, and I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington there in the business department. And I'm kind of like you. I'm a lifetime recovering geek, and I got an actual Bachelor of Science degree, but I got it out of the business college. So a little bit more of a twist. They were doing something different than it was taught in the computer engineering side. And then after that, I said to myself, I'm really tired of just being in Dallas. That's all I've ever seen for my life for the most part as a young adult. And I said to myself, all right, first person to offer me a job out of state, I'll take. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the pay is and everything else. So lo and behold, U-Haul companies offered me a company in Phoenix, Arizona.
Chippendale gave you a call.
No, not Chippendale. Yeah, no, but U-Haul of all places, and I'm like, U-Haul, yeah, you're the moving trucks, and so I moved to Phoenix and started my IT career there, and that continued on for a number of years, and then I'm sure you're aware of, Eric, you get to a point where it's like, do I want to keep doing this? Is there enough challenges for me to keep doing it? And the answer was no. I kind of want to have something more in life and branch beyond that. And then I was blessed with an opportunity to be able to move back to Texas near my parents, and that has its blessings and not so much.
Yeah.
So it's great to be near them when they need you, but when they don't need you, sometimes you wish you were back across the country somewhere. However, that's what brought me back to Texas, and of all places, to the Houston area, and I currently live in Conroe. I said to myself, 20 years ago, I'm never going to move back to Houston. It's just too humid. Well, let me tell you, after a number of years out in the desert of Arizona where it's 115 and they were setting record temperatures, and I still remember 127, the hottest temperature that ever recorded. I was there. You say to yourself, humidity's not so bad. I can handle degrees and humidity. And that's kind of brought me back to the Texas area. And so I've been here a number of years, I think all told from when I was growing up to now, probably about 25 years. And then my family have been in and around the Conroe area for 25 years. So that's what I call home now. So that's a little bit about where I came from and how I got here. And I believe your second question is kind of how I got introduced to networking. And
that's what we want to cover next is when you were first introduced to network, the idea is, not everybody likes that introduction. Maybe they had to do it for some reason, especially, as geeks, we, know how to put computers together, but people, what? Yuck. Why would I want to do that, right? And so, do you have that kind of experience? Who introduced you to the idea of networking? How did they introduce you? What was your first kind of foray into networking?
Well, the first place I went networking was actually in Houston when they had their meeting up in the Woodlands. And
really?
I saw networking actually, and this was official. You can join a chamber or go to some mixer, and you really don't know what you're doing and things like that. But I traced my first official contact. I kind of got the hang of it, knew what it was about. So walking into that first meeting was about like walking into my first Zumba class this week. And it was like, I don't move in ways like this. This is very awkward,
painful.
Very uncomfortable. Yeah. It's fun, but it's just, this is strange. Oh.
You should see Eric's Zumba. Man, Eric can Zumba like the best of them.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to see that.
Just kidding.
But when I got into it after, a few times, it was beginning to get easier. And actually, prior to that, I don't call it official networking. I was in Toastmasters because being a geek, getting in front of somebody and start talking stuff and you don't even know them, or front of a large group of people, you're like, if it's not technical and you don't know it, you're very awkward in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So Toastmasters got me past the fear of talking to complete strangers and saying something intelligible. And once I did the networking more and more, I had actually met Mitchell from there, and he introduced me to my referral network. And ever since I met Mitchell and started attending my referral network, I attend there regularly. And then some of the other networking events where it makes sense in and around my area. I'm not a professional networker in that that's all I do for a living. I actually do have to work. So I pick and choose my territory and have a plan what to stick to, and so I can actually get work done when I get the referrals from the people during networking. So that's the little 411 on my introduction to networking.
Very cool. Well, this is usually when I kick it over to Mitchell for his questions. He usually grills the guests at this point. You got any questions for Henry for us, Mitchell?
Well, I'll go ahead and take your question that you normally ask people, and that is, Henry, if you can share with us and the listeners, when is the first time that you heard the term servant leadership? Like Give First Networking, that concept, was it at one of the other things you went to prior to in Houston? Was it in Houston? Was it my referral network? Where along the way? This is the first question. And then two, what do you think about it?
Well, servant leadership, first time I hear it actually was from my referral network. I had perhaps seen what I call a prototype of the idea, other people networking, not really understood it at the time because I was still new. So I think there was some reference to it in Houston, but I didn't connect it, didn't understand what I was reading, in other words. And then I started to understand it more and more. And what it means to me, in essence, is when you are working with other people and other businesses, especially in networking, one of the fatal things I think a lot of people do when they start networking is they just go out, throw their cards out there, and you really don't get to know them. And in servant leadership, it's sort of like I talk to the other person and say, how can I help you? And they're like thrown off a lot of times. They're like, well, yeah, but I'm here to give you my card. And it's like, I can give you a lead. It's like give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but you teach him how to fish and he can feed himself for a lifetime. And leadership is a lot like that, is you want to help your fellow business owners fish or, learn to fish in their business. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, there is a huge amount of commonality. And you may have had encounter with a problem that they haven't seen yet, and vice versa. And so when you're acting in accordance with the servant leadership principles and you're working and serving each other, you can build a great relationship that way, and then that's the beginning of the know, like, and trust factor.
I love it. Eric, did you call Henry ahead of time and prep him with what to say on servant leadership? Because that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think he's been getting it from a place called My Referral Network, or, he might have listened to it on this talk show called Everything Networking. It's this great talk show they did. Every week they talk about this, so.
Good stuff. By the way, Henry, just before we get to the half-hour mark, where we're really going to dive into, after our commercial break about halfway through the show, we're going to dive into the do's and the don'ts of networking, maybe some tips and tricks that you've seen and learned along the way that are working for you and other people, and maybe some things that you want to share with the listeners. Don't do this, don't do that kind of thing. So we're gonna get into that here in just a few minutes after the break. But before we get to the break, before we get off of everything about Henry, give us a quick 2-minute, if you will, rundown on what's your current business that you're doing and what's a good referral for you right now.
Well, the current business that I'm doing I'm a senior mortgage banker. And that has a reputation a lot of times of a life insurance salesman in a funeral parlor sometimes. People are just kind of like, oh, my gosh, get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You are the evil of the economy. However, I carry a designation that actually ties to servant leadership, which is a certified mortgage coach. And what that is we are actually taught as a certified mortgage coach to educate people of what they're doing, making sure they're making the right decisions. And so many people are so, I wouldn't say put off, but they're just very confused when I first talk to them. They'll say, what do you mean, you don't need my application initially if I want to do a refi? And it's like, no, I need to see if it's in your best interest. And the same thing goes with somebody who's a first-time home buyer. They don't know what to do. They need to be educated. So overall, a good referral for me is I do a lot of work with veterans. So the VA loan is one of the hardest loans to do in the marketplace, and a lot of loan officers simply don't do them because it's like, oh, it's too hard, it's this, it's that. Well, once you've learned it and mastered that loan, every other loan is a little bit easier. So I was actually the first one in the brokerage I was at doing the VA loans. It was literally for it during the subprime days when you could get a loan. Just breathing. And they said, oh, I don't know why you do that. Vets, anybody can get this type of loan. I said, vets have kind of done a lot for us, and I kind of like helping them out. And so while I do all the other types of loans, the most fulfilling type is, helping our vets get into a home or anything else.
Excellent. So vets is where you like to reside. It's kind of funny. I like vets too, but I like the other kind of vets, the cat, dog kind of vets.
Okay.
However,
those vets only take your money where the other vets preserve your freedom.
There you go. I was going to say it was another attempt at corny humor. I'm usually the comic relief on the show. I try to throw a little bit out from time to time. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. But anyways, before we get completely off of Henry Daniels, what is it? What networking group do you go to, or what networking groups do you go to on a regular basis, and where can people find you as far as coming up and networking with you and saying, hey, I heard you on the show, in the greater Houston area, where are you? What kind of events do you go to that they can come out and hang out with you?
Well, I'll tell you, Mitchell. There basically, as far as networking goes, I will go to most networking events that are in the Woodlands to Conroe. Specifically, however, I do go to my referral network in Conroe, my referral network in the Woodlands, and then I do the in Houston in the Woodlands. And recently, Houston Networking News has started a networking event in Magnolia once a month. And so I will go to those regularly, and then I will also adhere to your CEOs, which I'm sure you've talked about on the show before, and any networking event that's related to the Woodlands or the Conroe Chamber, especially the after-hours events, I will be at.
Very good. By the way, I love it when people say they actually heard and learned something on the show. It's always a positive thing. So, right about this time, I believe Eric usually has some commercials that we want to play for support of one of our sponsors for the show. If you are listening and you want to be a sponsor of the Everything Networking Show, definitely reach out to Eric Stanley or myself. Our contact information is, first off, on the Blog Talk Radio Talk Show page. But to save you from having to look it up, you can always email Mitchell at mitchellfrom.com. That's F-R-O-M. Or you can reach out and email Eric, E-R-I-C, at ericstanlee.com, ericstandlee.com. Either one of us, we'd be more than happy to give you more information about how you can be a sponsor of the show as the show continues to grow.
All right, we'll be coming right back after these commercials.
In today's economy, business bankers are having to turn down their best clients for many reasons. Their growth is too fast for a bank to understand, or they're too new, or they're in the wrong industry. We help business bankers maintain a positive relationship with these clients, and we help that company get the funding they need, and we fund into their account at that bank. For over 21 years, we've helped thousands of companies with billions of dollars in capital to grow and prosper. AmericanCredentialCapital.com.
A lot of people have been told to go out and network to grow their business, and yet few people have a plan or strategy or any idea what they're doing. In My Referral Network, you're also going to learn what that plan is and how it's developed into really a great way to work the different pieces of networking to get the best results.
You know the old phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know? I tell people, crumble it up, throw it away. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you and trusts you, because that's how you're going to see referrals come your way. It used to be said that your network consisted of maybe 200 people in your sphere of influence. Well, nowadays that number is drastically larger. You could be talking your sphere of influence in the thousands. And with thousands of people in our network, we can leverage that to help one another every single day.
It's important not only to have resources that you can go to, but also as a way to provide value to the people who work with you. People come to me because they know I can find someone or something that helps them in their life. Beyond developing know, like, and trust with the members of the organization, it's become a way for me to be of value to my clients.
Are you ready to see your business grow? Do you know the awesome power in a referral? Have you heard that networking can lead to increased sales revenues? In a recent CNN Money article on networking, it was stated by Keith Ferrazzi, author and networking expert, that above all, do whatever you can to help others succeed. It will come back to you. Generosity is the key to success. Joining a networking organization is vital to the success of your business. My Referral Network is your solution. My Referral Network teaches you how to be an effective networker. My Referral Network helps you grow your business through highly effective warm referrals. My Referral Network has partnered with sales, marketing, and networking experts such as James Dutton for the guaranteed growth and success of the organization and its members. My Referral Network is your referral network. Building your business with endless warm referrals. www.myreferralnetwork.net.
Welcome to the Everything Networking Talk Show, sharing real-world networking experiences, the do's and the don'ts, in order to help you grow. With your hosts, Eric Stanley and Mitchell Fromm.
Hey, howdy, we're back from the break, and we appreciate you listening to our sponsors. If you want to be a sponsor of Everything Networking, please just get in touch with us. You can go to Everything Networking on Facebook, facebook.com/Everything Networking. You'll find Mitchell and I listed there. You can contact us that way. You can contact us at the email addresses that Mitchell gave earlier in the show, Mitchell@MitchellFrom.com or Eric@EricStanley.com. We're glad to come back. We have a guest on the line who's been sharing with us his journey in networking, and we've been talking about servant leadership networking. And Mitchell, we're back to the do's and don'ts and the tips and the tricks, aren't we?
Absolutely. This is always the fun part of the show, at least. I mean, granted, Henry, knowing you and getting to know you more is always fun. However, the aspect of this part of the show where we get into the do's and don'ts, I always like, because when we have different guests on the show, we get to hear what our guests are thinking that are do's and don'ts. It gives a fresh look, or it kind of reinforces what we say on a weekly basis, but it's not just the Mitchell and Eric show and just our opinion on a weekly basis. So hopefully you've been thinking about some do's or don'ts, some tips or tricks in regards to what we want to, or what you want to share with the listeners today. And we're going to go ahead and start off with you, so that way you can't say, oh, Mitchell, you took my idea, or Eric took your idea. So you get to go first. I would love to know what it is that is either a do or a don't in your mind that just stands out that people need to either do more of or do less of to be more effective in their networking.
Well, the first thing is I've heard a saying that 90% of success is just showing up. And I think a lot of people, when they attend networking events, this is kind of a do and a don't. You need to be consistent. You need to show up on a regular basis. And a lot of people, when they get started at networking, to a degree, they see it as a social event, and it's really not so much that. Yes, there is socialization that occurs. However, it is your marketing. If it is your marketing and you're seriously working at it, you are going to be consistent, and you are going to show up. And that in itself builds all of those things to know, like, and trust, because if I know somebody's going to be at an event, I've met them and I've talked to them and I like them, and I see them in other areas such as social media and elsewhere, I'm going to develop that know, like, and trust. But when you get somebody who comes once, tosses a card at you, and says, hey, here's my business, runs away, that's the don't. It's like, I don't know who you are, I don't know anything about you, and I don't trust you. There's no way, because I haven't built it. So that's my first thing. And the main reason I say that is because it's so easy. It's just be there. And you'll get over, if you've still got stage fright, after a while it's going to kind of go away, because you're going to know these people a number of times.
Well, so Henry, you're standing on the other side of the Grand Canyon from some people. Some people are looking at you going, yeah, but you're over there. You do this on a regular basis. You're having success at it. Help somebody see what the value of being consistent in networking is. Draw that bridge for them across the Grand Canyon and say, here's what it's done for me. I've gotten referrals. I've had this great thing happen. This feel-good thing happen. Tell us a couple of those kind of stories for Henry.
What I really like is you may not get a referral right away, but you get a referral second or third relations away. It's kind of like playing the Kevin Bacon connectivity program.
Right.
Because you've shown up that person at that event trusts you, so they're going to recommend you to their family. And then once you've gone to a number of events, the family members start calling you and say, hey, I've got this thing I want to refinance, or I want to purchase a house. Really? Well, where'd you hear about it? Well, I knew my brother is Joe, and Joe told me about everything about you and how you did all this other stuff. So a lot of it relates to, and I know where I heard this. This is the popcorn analogy that Mitchell Fromm used at one of our My Referral Network leadership training. And when you're investing in networking, a lot of times people go to just get referrals, and they don't know anything about it. But as you keep going, you keep stirring up interest and everything else. And how it ties to the popcorn analogy, you throw the popcorn in the microwave and you hit it with the microwave, and nothing happens for like a minute and a half. And you're like, it ain't working. You open the door. Oh, man. So that means you leave the meeting and don't show up for 2 or 3 weeks. Close the door and it starts going again. You don't understand why it's not working. And then all of a sudden, it starts popping. Same thing with networking. If you're not there to build that rapport, you are not going to get everyone's friends and family and everything else, because they simply don't know you. And that's how it's worked for me. I've got good people in networking groups that, let's call them 2 or 3 relations away, that I never would have gotten otherwise. But I was there for 6 months before I got one from that person.
Mm-hmm.
Then the person called me. They said, hey, you know what? I want to refinance. I'd go through a scenario with them, said, no, it's not in your best interest. And they call me back 6 months later and go, well, you know, so I want to use you. But I referred you to two of my friends because you were honest with me. That's how networking works. Because you build that rapport and so on. So when you're getting started, my best advice to people is just because you can't go to 2 or 3 of them, that's fine. Pick one and be consistent. Start with an Houston event that happens once a month and go every single month. Don't ever miss a day. And as your commitment can increase, then go to a weekly event such as my referral network, where you will also get education and more tips on how to network even further. And it's always about your professional development, and networking is part of that, and you need to be constantly learning also. So if you're going to a place that you're learning about it, think of it that way. And I think that's what a lot of people do is they go, oh, my gosh, I'm just going to go out for the free food. Well, that's all you're going to get is the free food. You're not going to get business. Okay? So be there and have that servant leadership mindset. And the first few times, find who's hosting the meeting and go to that person and start talking with them to break the ice. And good servant leadership meeting leader will actually take you around the room a lot of times and introduce you to other people, and then that's your cue to start talking to them and getting to know them.
Yeah, very good. Awesome points. I think, actually, I've known Mitchell for a long time, and I think that's actually the first time I've heard the popcorn analogy. That's very strong. I love that idea, and it really drives home the idea of being consistent with your meetings. And I love your advice. Baby steps. Take baby steps and do the once a month meetings on a regular basis. And don't be that guy that just hands out cards and shows up once and then isn't seen for forever. I love those. Those are really good points. And I'm going to jump in here because we do a lot of our events, the In Houston events, at bars, because typically it's going to be a cash bar. They're going to come and get a drink and network that way. So I want to talk about this because one of our pinnacle events is at a very expensive wine bar, in my opinion. Very expensive. I mean, to buy a glass there, you could buy a bottle at Specs. I mean, it's just very expensive. But I love having it there because when you do it at the other events or the other locations where they've given you, $1 beers or $2 beers or tons of free food, what people end up doing is they go for the beers and the food. So what ends up happening, kind of to what your point was, Henry, they end up spending their time on the food and the drinking, right? And so my don't in all of this is, I'm not saying drinking's bad. I'm not going to tell anybody what their religion is, what whatever you believe, follow that. But for those people who don't have any guidance in their life around drinking, if you're going to drink, maybe one or two, but at some point your speech starts to slur, your reaction time in the conversation starts to slow down. You may think you're looking like Elvis Presley, but you're probably looking like Junkyard Dog. You know what I mean? And it's better for you to stay sober and stay in the conversation than it is for you to drown your fear of conversation. Pain is where the gain is. So you want to push yourself through what's hard for you now. Nothing worth doing has ever been easy. So push yourself through it. And of course, you were talking about veterans earlier, and so the veterans who are listening to this, or the veterans who listen to the podcast later on, are going to say, well, yeah, I learned that in basic training. The hard part about basic training was just learning how far you could go. What you could take. Well, I think we miss out something in America because we don't teach our children in high school, our kids in college, that pain part. You've got to push through the pain, right? And I think that's something that they can learn at a networking event. Look, everybody comes to a networking event with some kind of trepidation when they're coming the first time, and you really just have to step through it. You have to work through that, and your muscles will get stronger eventually. You will get better at it, and you will end up enjoying it. But it's something, it's an acquired taste. It's kind of like a really strong cheese. That first time you taste it, man, that stuff stinks. But after a while, you get used to it. And if you keep up, and you drink it with eat it with a good wine, you drink a good wine with it, then, you eventually start to like it, the important part is that there's a value for you to do that. And I hope you're getting that from Henry, getting his referrals. I talk about it all the time where, I have actually driven real, revenue for our company, sales revenue for our company, sales dollars that have hit our balance sheet, in the millions of dollars in monthly revenue by doing this. And so you've got to know that there's actually a payoff. The important thing is, and this is probably handed off to Mitchell to talk about deal, but the important thing is it's not about giving to get. Isn't that right, Mitchell?
That's right. In fact, I just had a conversation with an IT gentleman. Talk about IT. Henry was IT, I was IT, you were IT.
We're geeking out, man.
I was talking with Wayne.
Technical difficulties today.
That's
There's too many
right.
geeks in the room.
I just had a one-on-one with Wayne, who I met through in Houston, and he's an IT guy as well. And one of the things we just finished talking about was the phrase, do you give to get to give, or give to give? So just exactly to the point of what you just said, Eric, was my conversation with him. And what I said was, for those of you that haven't heard this phrase before, I'm going to touch on it because we usually will talk about it and tell people, you got to get to the give to give, the give first mentality, servant leadership. And although it sounds great, just like Henry was saying earlier, sometimes you might hear the term servant leadership. You might hear, give to get to give, or give to give, but does it really make a whole lot of sense? Do you really understand what it is that we're talking about? So the give to get is typically what most people do when they come to networking. They give a referral in expectation to get something in return. They give to get. Well, that's where I was. I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty much where I started. What I learned.
Don't we all?
Yeah, what I learned. And after not networking effectively for a better part of a couple of years, I figured something has to change. Well, excuse me. What changed over those couple of years was I went from the give to get and became the get to give, which is not the good positive change. What happens is most people give to get. They get frustrated because they can't put an actual ROI or return on their investment of time and energy in giving referrals. So they're giving and they're saying, well, I gave a referral to Eric. I gave a referral to Henry. When am I going to get mine? Gosh darn it, how many times do I got to pass a referral to these guys before I get one back from them? And so that's where I was when I first got into this. And I felt that coming out of corporate America, everyone talked about, TLAs, three-letter acronyms, and ROI, and all this other kind of stuff. And I felt like I needed to make sure that I was getting something for my time. And if I'm going to take time to refer somebody to somebody else, and that person who received it, they better give back to me. And it was a very selfish mindset that I was in, but I understand that that's where a lot of us have been or are. If you're listening to the show for the first time or you're getting a recap here, the give to get mentality will bring somebody to the point of frustration, and they go, you know what, I am just tired with this. I do not see how giving to these people's lives is actually helping me because I'm not getting anything back like I thought I would. I'm going to wait.
It's like networking doesn't work, right?
Right. I'm going to wait until I get something. Then once I get something, then I'll give a referral back to them. So they transition just like I did from give to get, and they transition into the get to give. Well, not only is that make that individual unattractive to everybody in the room, because everybody can see the person that is a bump on a pickle or a bump on a log, just sitting there, taking up space, soaking up oxygen, not giving into a group, but instead they're sitting there with their hand out waiting for something. And that's where I was, and I did not have people readily wanting to come up and connect with me and help refer business my way, and that's because I was my own worst enemy, going through this process. When I finally got to the point where one day I was sitting there thinking about my relationship, my spiritual relationship with God, and there's some scripture that says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. I believe it's in James. And I started thinking to myself, well, that's me, because during the evenings and weekends and any other time other than work hours, I was there for people. I wanted to be there for people. I felt good helping other people. So I would do it as much as I could. However, corporate America trained me that nobody was going to work on my business, my project, my job, whatever it was I was doing, but me. And that if you're trying to grow a business, to thine own self be true, you have to put in 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, on your business, and nobody's going to do it but you. And that was like one of the biggest lies that held me back for years, because that kept me from being the give-to-give kind of individual. So when I finally read that scripture and applied it to my life, it might apply in a number of different ways based on how you read it, but to me, I applied that being a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways to how I was in my networking. I was about me during my days and business and everything, and I was about everybody else all the rest of the time. And I said, does God want me to be all about me all the time, or would he prefer me to be about other people all the time? Keeping other people in my thoughts, and when I see an opportunity to help them. By the way, that's Proverbs 3:27. But I felt that he wanted me to be that kind of person. So I went ahead and made that transition, and I did it kind of timidly. I knew I wanted to be there, but I didn't have anybody. I didn't have an Everything Networking talk show. I didn't have people around me that were on the other side of the chasm, like Eric says, saying, "Come on over, it's safe. Look, you'll see, it worked." So I approached it timidly at first, and then as I started to see people change in their response to me and wanting to help me back, all of a sudden it was just continual proof that having a giver's heart, giving to give with no expectation to receive, not only makes a difference in the recipient's way of looking at you, but all the people that are around that see you giving to help other people without an expectation of something in return, the way they look upon you is also favorable. Now, you're not doing it for that purpose, but that's the side benefit, is that it does help your overall general networking, because we, as human beings, are designed and built to want to help those that help others. It just helps feed that whole process. So what do we want to do? We want to help other people. Other people see us help other people. They help us. Vice versa, the whole process continues and continues and continues. What breaks the process? When we stop thinking about other people and we start thinking about ourselves. Then we get back into the give to get or the get to give. So that's my explanation on do you give to get to give, or give to give, and why it's not only just smart to do, it goes against corporate America's teachings that I had from years ago, and it's scriptural. So it is what I consider to be the truth.
Very good stuff. I love it when you get into that, and you can tell you're excited and energized about that. I didn't mean to steer that into your do's and don'ts. Did you have a do and don't, or a trick or tip that you wanted to share with our listeners?
No, that's good. I think I drove home a point today, so let's go ahead, and if you have something to add before we go ahead and start wrapping up, that'd be great. I think people want to hear what's in the mind of Eric Stanley. How do you drive all this revenue? What is the truth in your mind in regards to networking, something that you follow on a regular basis?
Well, I got to talk a little bit earlier, but I'll share on that real quick. The number one thing, and there's people selling, webinars on this and courses online about this. I don't sell this information. I give this away freely. I speak at all kinds of events about this, and I'll tell everybody freely. I'll tell you the right way to do this online. And the first thing is, online and offline networking is no different, in my opinion. You still have to have that know, like, and trust. You still have to be that servant leader to get the kind of value that I've gotten. I'm speaking from my experience. And so, but the trick, if you want to put it that way, is that every social media site out there, no matter if it's Twitter, Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, whatever you're using, and by the way, other people are using the other ones that you aren't using, so you should at least have a profile on them. But whatever you're using, the most important thing you can do, the thing that's driven the most value for me, and it's going to sound way too simple, so brace yourself, okay? But the most important thing you can do networking-wise is to be grateful. I know, it sounds silly. Thank you. It's that simple. But when you thank people for connecting you, because they took the time to invite you on LinkedIn, or they took the time to accept your invite on LinkedIn, if you thank them and start that conversation correctly, it's just like when you're trading business cards. They give you a business card, you give them yours, and you say, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Try that out. That has been the secret sauce, so to speak, that I talk about all the time. In 1 or 2 minutes in this call, I'll go into a lot more detail about specific steps that you take and all that. But the most important thing is figure out a way to be that guy that's in the top 2% of the people in that network by being the guy that thanks. Being the gal that says thank you for, being a part of this group, or thank you for joining, or, happy birthday is another great thing. Try to think of ways to lift others up first and ask them how you can help them. If you can put that gratitude into your networking online, one, like Mitchell said, you'll stop being so focused on self. But two, it'll also help you on your business side. First, it's going to be about your personal development, like Mitchell's been saying. You're going to develop yourself first. But as you develop yourself, you'll get to that point where people are looking at you online just like they look at you offline, as that guy who's helping Henry walk around the room and introducing Henry to everybody in the room. The same thing can be done online. And just open your mind to the possibilities of how you can help people. I'll give you 2 real quick examples. A guy from Portland, Oregon owns a mobile lube shop, and he asked me for an introduction into Shell Jiffy Lube downtown because I'm in Houston probably more than anything. I looked on LinkedIn, and sure enough, I had the guy at the level that he wanted to meet that I could introduce him to, but he was separated from me by one person. And it's funny, that person was in Pakistan. And the day before, that Pakistani person had invited me to connect on LinkedIn. But because of a knee-jerk reaction I had from when I was a top-secret clearance holder in the military, I had said no to that Pakistani man, not knowing that the guy spends a lot of his time here in Houston, and he's very well connected here. And I just knee-jerk reaction. He's from a country that was red flagged at one point when I was in the military, and I said no. And the next day, here I am asking him, can you introduce me to this guy so I can introduce my friend to him? I'd like to connect with him online. And, of course, what you don't know is some of your reactions have unintended consequences. On LinkedIn, I was his 5th I don't know, and because of that, he was his LinkedIn account was affected. He was locked down for a little bit. He had to beg LinkedIn for his account back because of me. So, needless to say, he wasn't really open to connecting with me or helping me connect my friend to that guy at Shell Jiffy Lube. Very important point, okay? It's not always about, driving revenue for me. Even in my wanting to refer somebody to a friend, I can make the wrong choice. And that's the landmine I stepped on. I hope you don't, because I've shared that with you. And I could share all kinds of other stories. I love the feel-good ones. Through a connection I made in New York with a travel agent in New York, I was able to introduce a lady who just found me on LinkedIn and asked me point blank, do you know anybody who can help me get my nieces and nephew out of a country that had been locked down by the State Department. Americans weren't able to travel in or out of it, and it was because of some kind of war or something. And I was just blown away by the request, but I remembered that I had this connection that I made by thanking a guy in New York for connecting with me and saying, hey, how can I help you? We started a conversation, and in that conversation I got to know him and found out that he did have State Department connections. And so I said, hey, Arthur, can you help this lady? And he said, sure. And in 2 days they were able